Welcome to Postcards, a brief look at people, places, the arts and curiosities from around the world. On today's program, we look at winning works at the London Contemporary Art Fair, the largest gathering worldwide for watercolours and drawings, a modern touch-up for 16th century miniatures. We feature Spode China from Stoke-on-Trent, and Shakespeare's Globe Theatre goes on display. But first up, Featherstone Lodge in the southeast London suburb of Forest Hill. Inside, an art class is busy, but this is a class with a difference. Most of the students here are coming off drugs. It's part of a radical arts outreach program run by the world-famous Dulwich Picture Gallery. It's designed for people who would never normally be interested in art. For many of the students, it's become a revelation. But this artist already worked as a sculptor before he came to Featherstone Lodge. The art class rekindled his interest, and he wants to continue when he leaves. He's already managed to change a dream into reality. Practical art projects include drawing, painting and collage. The residents learn about and experiment with the techniques and media of 17th and 18th century artists. It's a steep learning curve. One that's been equally rewarding for those who teach the course as well. The gallery runs a number of similar programs in prisons, hospitals and the unemployed, proving that art can be enjoyed by everybody. British artist Alex Hartley unveils his award-winning work, Pavilion. The 36-year-old artist is the winner of Britain's biggest annual art cash prize of $48,000. The award sculpture at Goodwood Art 2000 Commission Prize goes to his glass box, which contains architectural images and photographs. The unveiling marked the opening of Art 2000, the 12th London Contemporary Art Fair. More than 40,000 people are expected to visit the 5-day-long exhibition, reflecting the growing interest in British contemporary art. The event shows what the organisers call the best art, painting, photography and sculpture. The work is being displayed for sale by 95 exhibiting galleries. Prices range from $800 to $240,000. The galleries expect to sell up to 20% of annual turnover at the fair. The exhibition at the Business Design Centre in Islington includes drawings by artists like Damien Hirst and Tracy Emin for children to colour. The colouring book will raise money for Kosovo. The Watercolours and Drawings Fair is a relatively recent addition to London's cultural calendar, but it's already the largest gathering anywhere in the world of specialist dealers in watercolours and drawings. Anything from an old master sketch to contemporary watercolours are to be found here, with prices ranging from a modest $80,000 to $160,000 US. The artists are predominantly British. In 19th century Britain, watercolours were considered on a par with oils, and every great British artist painted in watercolour as well as oils. The British excelled in painting in watercolour. Something about the English landscape, its mists and rain, seems to suit the medium of watercolour. A beautiful evocation of the English countryside is to be found in this early 20th century view of a Surrey village by Anna Alma Tadema. New watercolour movements are rare these days, but the fine work of the Victorian period still means that hidden gems are there to be found. There are 11,000 artists listed in the Dictionary of Victorian Art. This year's fair also features a special exhibition from the 600,000 works belonging to the Royal Institute of British Architects' prized collection. Alfred Waterhouse's design for the Natural History Museum's entrance hall is here, as is the Cuthbert Broderick's Corn Exchange, and Erno Goldfinger's 60s blueprint for the Elephant and Castle Shopping Centre, all London landmarks. There are some non-British artists here, even if they are vastly outnumbered. An outstanding response last year to North Carolina dealers Clark Art brought them back this year with more examples of work by Altina Villasanate, a Peruvian artist whose bold style has proved immensely popular. And another non-British star is acknowledged in this 1910 pencil drawing by Amadeo Modigliani, entitled New Debut. It's only one of 3,000 wide-ranging works on offer here by more than 50 dealers, who bring the best of their collections to an art fair enjoying fast-growing popularity and acclaim. This is the face of Nicholas Hilliard, the 16th century master painter of miniature portraits. Trained as a goldsmith, Hilliard used metal as well as paint to enhance the detail, complexity and richness of his paintings. Inevitably though, they've lost something of their sparkle over the centuries. But art conservationists rule out touching up something so small and fine, so appreciating them as they would have been is difficult. London's Royal College of Art, just up the road from the Victoria and Albert Museum, where the Hilliard miniatures are on display. Here, postgraduate student Nick Frayling, a portrait painter himself, is working on ways to use computer technology to help give a clearer view of Hilliard's works. Using photographs fed into the computer, he can zoom in on details and modify the colour and light intensity. It's a bit like virtual repainting. At the click of a mouse, you can highlight details, like the text on this portrait, or restore the jewels to their original lustre. A simulated X-ray view shows immediately where Hilliard used gold or silver in the original painting. The computer can even turn the image around and show what's on the back. This technology could also help those working on restoring larger canvases. Admirers of Hilliard, students and the general public stand to benefit from an unusual marriage of art and technology to get a clearer view of this remarkable master painter. The Spode factory in England's pottery capital, Stoke-on-Trent. For over 200 years, the workshops and kilns on this site have produced Spode china and earthenware using methods dating back centuries. The wealth of traditional skills used here makes Spode unique in English pottery. In this workshop, craftsmen are engraving copper plates with new and old Spode designs. They're used as blueprints for most of the china and earthenware produced here. This design is being painstakingly copied from an antique china dish dating back to 1812. Ever since the process of blue underglaze printing from hand-engraved copper plates was perfected by Josiah Spode in 1784, the company has been famous for its blue and white designs. Today, though, the company produces thousands of ranges of china and earthenware, supplying everything from palaces to private aircraft. Some designs are mass-produced, but private commissions form a significant part of the factory's output. 85% of its goods go overseas, where their quality and their Englishness appeal. This year, Spode has produced a limited edition range to mark an important anniversary. It's 200 years since Josiah Spode perfected his second innovation, the formula for fine bone china. It was the single most significant development in the history of the pottery industry. The centre of that industry was based locally, where a plentiful supply of highly calorific coal yielded the long flames needed for the bottle-shaped factory kilns. The completion of the Grand Trunk Canal in 1777 had brought rapid expansion and access to new markets, inspiring Josiah Spode to experiment with new formulas. His genius was to mix china clay and Cornish stone with an equal weight of bone ash. 2 years after a 1796 invoice shows him on the verge of the discovery, Spode's new formula hit the market. It transformed the industry. In the rapid expansion of the tableware industry that followed, Spode had the advantage. The company's mould store bears witness to its ability to supply a new class of people, the English gentry, who had grown wealthy on the back of the Industrial Revolution. Thanks to Spode's two innovations, the company was able to supply this new market with China, just as the tax on tea was reduced, boosting demand for tableware. And as the upper classes tired of Chinese porcelain and imports dwindled, Spode stepped in to supply copies to the gentry, who wanted what their betters once possessed. By 1806, the company was awarded the Royal Warrant, an honour it still carries today. The collection of archives preserved at Spode includes over 70,000 recorded patents dating from the late 18th century. They form a unique record of the evolution of English ceramics and remain a source of inspiration for Spode's designers today. And Spode products are, in essence, still made the way they always have been. The company sticks faithfully to the original 18th century formula for fine bone china, which limits the amount of mechanisation that can be used. A higher degree of artistry, handwork and craftsmanship is needed here throughout all stages of production. George Kirkham has honed his skills over nearly 4 decades.
I started the job about 38 years ago, actually, learning this job.
After being allowed to stand and harden, the whiteware, as it's called, is fired in the kiln. The clay then contracts by 20% to its final size, leaving the china ready for glazing and firing. It's a process that can be repeated several times, depending on the way the pots are decorated. The more elaborate and decorative designs are hand-painted directly onto the glowstware, a task requiring great skill and patience. These vases are part of a special edition of 200 to mark Spode's anniversary. Lithography and water slide transfers are other traditional methods of decoration used here. One of the oldest ways of producing transfers is on a flat press. Paint is applied to one of Spode's copper plates, and then transfer paper wetted with soapy water is placed over the plate and cooked in the hot press. The transfer is then cut up and the design is wrapped around the pots. The paper is then rubbed off, leaving the ink imprinted onto the whiteware. A good rinse and more rubbing removes the last of the paper, leaving a rich quality of ink on the surface. It's a centuries-old technique that's inspired one modern artist to use it in her work. Spode's patterns and designs appear in this bowl by Charlotte Hodes, who was invited by Spode to experiment with their decorative techniques and designs. Amazed at the huge wealth of archival material available on the site, Charlotte became interested in deconstructing the designs and reconstructing them into something very different, using something historic to make something new. The result isn't an official Spode design, but a Hodes original. It doesn't yet have a place in Spode's museum, where the plate commissioned by the Prince of Wales in 1863 sits alongside one supplied to Charles Dickens 4 years later, and a coffee can and saucer commissioned a century after that by the Royal Yacht. Preserving the kind of skills and artistry that went into making the treasures in Spode's museum has meant that, unlike its competitors, the company is able to produce small runs of new products relatively cheaply, rather than having to adapt expensive machinery. An advantage that the entrepreneur Josiah Spode would no doubt endorse. The factory's multi-print machine is one of Spode's fastest decorative processes, and it's currently producing one of Spode's most popular ranges in America, the Christmas tree. It's a design that's grown in popularity since the end of the Second World War, while the company's most popular patterns worldwide is the blue Italian. Alongside the tower blue and the willow pattern, it's one of 3 Spode originals still produced today, and like all Spode products, still made the way they always have been. All the world's a stage, and the reconstructed Globe Theatre on London's South Bank has certainly become a major international tourist attraction. William Shakespeare, as the man who started it all, would probably have been somewhat bemused. For beneath the stage of his most famous theatre, the world's largest exhibition dedicated to his life and work has recently opened. It can cater for more than 400,000 visitors a year. The area is ideal for educational lectures, banquets, or just lounging about under a tree from the Forest of Arden. It's a hands-on interactive experience. Sound booths where you can try your hand as an actor, strutting and fretting. Or a tiring house where the actors would go to change. It's an opportunity to see how the original costumes were made and learn about the fabrics and stage props of Elizabethan theatre. For those who want to read the plays, there's a first folio of Julius Caesar. And a rare Elizabethan chapbook, where an actor or spectator would jot down his favourite words or puns. Hazelnut shells, discarded by an enthralled audience in the 17th century. Above all, the visitor gets a feel for what it was like at the time, the authentic costumes which have survived, and others from famous productions. And the musical instruments used during a performance. The exhibition reinforces Johnson's adage that Shakespeare was not for an age, but for all time, and will attract visitors for decades to come. The museum and heritage business is one of the fastest growing industries. Its annual show attracts exhibitors from all over the world. High tech is the name of the game. The latest technology is used in an attempt to attract a growing family audience. It's an area in which Britain excels. And there's a big demand for British expertise. There's always room for traditional costumes, recreating anything from Robin Hood to the French Revolution. And there's always a market for lifelike animatronic figures, which, thanks to new technology, are getting more like the real thing. The show, now in its 9th year, reflects a constantly changing marketplace. Even music has succumbed to the new technology. This company, OptiMusic, uses a light control system which is activated by breaking visual coloured light beams. It's child's play. The two-day show, which also included seminars, gave a fascinating glimpse into the future for an expanding sector of the leisure industry. Every year, millions of tourists flock to Madame Tussauds Waxwork Museum in London, and its latest exhibition looks set to boost visitor figures even further. For the first time ever, the museum is displaying exact replicas of the wedding gowns worn by the late Princess Diana, the Duchess of York, and the Countess of Wessex side by side. There's been a long tradition for Madame Tussauds to have the original designers make not one, but two dresses. The bride gets one dress, and there's a spare, just in case of accidents on the morning of the wedding. As soon as the bride is married, Madame Tussauds receives the second dress. The dress on the wax figure of the bride is then put on display the day after the wedding. It was the size of the dresses and the length of their trains that prevented them from being displayed together. That was until a group of lookalike prime ministers were ousted from their position to make room. What that formidable group would have had to say is anybody's guess. Of the three, Diana Spencer's gown, designed by David and Elizabeth Emanuel, is a visitor's favourite, recalling the happy days of her wedding to Prince Charles in 1981. Sarah Ferguson's dress was created by Linka Kirschach for her 1986 marriage to Prince Andrew. And the latest, designed by Samantha Shaw for Sophie Rhys-Jones's wedding to Prince Edward, dates back to just last summer. This is an exhibition custom-made for royal fans the world over. Huge numbers of visitors are already queuing up to be photographed with the dresses. The showcase of royal brides looks set to be one of the most popular of the year. The British Cartoon Centre is a new gallery in central London. The current exhibition selects the best 100 cartoons of the century. It's a homage to an art form Britain gave the world. Choosing the best was difficult, covering every type of social comment from biting satire to gentle comedy. The magazine Punch features heavily in the early cartoons. Ernest Reed was famous for his prehistoric jokes. And this early film A appeared in 1900. War was a fertile ground for satire. The Kaiser's Dream of London in 1915 is simple and effective. And then there are the household names. Heath Robinson and his wonderful contraptions. Jack or Raymond Jackson in the Evening Standard, with a witty comment on the church's involvement in the campaign for nuclear disarmament. And of course the irrepressible Giles, whose wonderful family charted the social changes of post-war Britain. Some have become cultural icons, like this by Philip Zeck in 1942. On a lighter note, there's the exuberant comic tradition of the seaside postcard. And the royal family, circa 1959, as caught by Ralph Steadman in Private Eye. And that's all for today. Join us again next time for a postcard look at interesting people, places and the arts.